It's
Every once in a while I go down the rabbit hole and watch a video and messes up my game. All right, we're running, that's it, okay. Thank you all. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We have a big crowd and a big agenda, so we'll get going. Do we have any general public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to approval of April meeting minutes. We've all had a chance to review those.
I move for the approval of the minutes as presented.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Staff report, Destiny?
Yes. Okay. So I posted a bunch of stuff on social media that our January minutes were posted. That we had created our grant workshop Facebook event and we shared that. We posted that our grant application has new updates to keep everybody up to date. We posted that our grant applications will be open August 1st because I've been inundated with lots of requests for the application already, which is great. Posted photo from our grant workshop that we had. Got a picture of the Palisade baseball field grant signage that we have. And so that's up and posted at the baseball field. We had two news media. One was from the Plateau Valley Times. They did an article on the field lights that we are doing up there in their building. And then we did post videos of the Plateau Valley Fire District vehicle exhaust system because they finished their grant. And that's, we have our meeting agenda that's been posted, and of course, happy 4th of July. Lots of social media. So again, the Mineral Lease District Grant Workshop was shared by the Business Times. It was not posted by the Daily Sentinel, even though I did send it over to them too. And then again, the Plateau Valley Times did an article on the football field lights, and that's the media that we had. The grants requesting payment, it's Plateau Valley Fire Department, their station vehicle exhaust removal. So it's $143,951.95. I think it's 5 cents under budget.
How'd you do?
Yeah. Breaking in the savings. So this is the pictures of their equipment up here. So got a nice signage here. Very nice big sign right there. And then down here, it plugs in. So you could probably explain it.
Yeah, so it plugs into the vehicles and then it goes into a central duct system and then connects to the fan and blows it right out. We were trying to get some more name recognition for you guys, so that's why we came up with those little hose ties that get them on all the hoses, because there's that's what's visible. So
Good.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Does that system start up automatically when you start a vehicle? You have to put a switch.
it starts up automatically. So
Okay.
yeah, either whenever the master's turned on or the brakes are applied, it'll kick on automatically.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go. So that one will be closed out today.
Good.
Our invoices, so May invoices were for me for April for $3,890.76. Dufford Waldeck for services in April for $1,188. Long Point Digital invoice for ADA compliant software and services for 2025 is $491. We haven't gotten any more invoices from them. I did reach out to Robert to see if they had gone into our website to see if there was anything that needed to be updated. He said they were working on it, but didn't have anything else for me. And so he would let me know if there was something that needed to be fixed, but they did put in accessibility, and that's been up on our website and running since May. So we are compliant with the law to the degree of however the law was written. So June invoices for me for May for $3,783.66. Dufford and Waldeck invoice for services for $432. And then the July invoices are for me for $3,783.66. Bailey for services through June for $1,280.81. And then Soren and Donley Patterson invoice for our audit for $4,000. So we do have to change our meeting date in September. Linda called and said that you guys are having your bank examiners come and take over the room during the time that we were originally scheduled to have our September meeting with grant presentations. So the two available dates that we have for you guys to check on are September 10th and August 1st.
Let the record reflect that I had no say in when that exam is.
Yeah,
I know.
you know, when September is off for me. I have a muskeg and there will be no meetings and stuff.
No meeting in September.
Just kidding, September 10th.
Okay.
Works for me.
And it does work out well because they'll have the grant application is due that Friday before, so I'll still be able to get you guys grant binders by that Monday before that meeting with presentations, so that's not anything to worry about. And Labor Day weekend is the weekend before. So
10th works for me.
10th works.
Okay.
Okay, good. I'll get that updated because we'll launch that with the application.
Work better for me anyways.
Okay, all right, and I'll update the meeting date too, so on your calendar, so I'll change that for you guys.
Okay.
So our upcoming events is that our audit has to be approved like today, and then we'll send it to the state. August 1st, our grant cycle opens. Late August, September, we should be getting our DOLA check for our budgeting year of 2026. And then September 5th, grant applications will be due, and then September 10th will be our new board meeting with presentations. So that's what I have.
Any questions for Dustin?
I have none.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, Willie, I think you're on. Or next item is the review of doc.
Perfect, so I have two documents that I gave to you. The first one I'm gonna go over is the governance letter, so it's the little 2-page document we have there. Essentially, what this is stating in here is outlined in terms of our agreement with you. If we had any difficulties with management, if we had any uncorrected misstatements or findings or anything like that, this is where that would be stated, and this would just be a letter to you outlining those. In here, we don't have anything of note. All went very smooth. Again, Dusty and I Bailey do a great job of providing us the stuff that we need to get this done. So it's a very smooth and efficient audit for us. It's boilerplate, that's what this is covering. So I won't get into the details of that. And then I have the audit report itself. I don't have very many, really anything different from last year to this year, so I'm gonna go through this pretty quick and just high level overview through this stuff. Anything that you want to touch more and go more in depth on, please just stop. Happy to do so. The first thing in here, after you get past the table of contents, is the independent auditor's report. There in the top section is our opinion section. Second paragraph is stating that in our opinion, the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with general accepted accounting principles. So that's what you're looking for there. It's letting readers of the financials know that your financials are correct, they're fairly presented. They know that they're looking at yours compared to other governmental entities, and everyone's operating under the same set of rules and making all of these standards. So that's the big thing that we're looking for there. None of the formatting and wording has changed from last year's report. Other needs. After the auditor's report, we get into the management discussion and analysis. This is going to provide kind of some definition overview and give a summary of the financial statements. I'm kind of going to skip past the MD&A just because I'm going to go over the numbers in a little more detail on the financial statements. But that's going to be the next couple pages here. That's 3 through 5. The first basic financial statement we get to is the statement of net position. This is on page 6. And this is going to be government-wide, pulling everything together in a whole. Really, cash investments have those listed on there, and then down in the net position or the equity section, we have the amounts that are restricted, the non-expendable amounts in the permanent fund, and then expendable, and then the unrestricted portion. The next page is the statement of activities. This is going to be again government-wide, everything lumped together, show the revenues and expenses. So a positive change in net position for the year of $590,000. Again, the big thing is with the grants that you're giving out, those get committed and we don't record those as expenses or expenditures in the statement of activities until your grantees have met the purposes on those grants. So until those are met and paid out, we don't record those. After that, we have the government funds balance sheet, and this is going to be, there's two different funds, the general fund and the permanent funds, for that with cash investments, and again, down the fund balance, this is broken out into that non-expendable and expendable, and then also under the general fund, you can see the committed portion. So those are the funds that have been granted but not yet paid. So that amount would be $193,000 there. Then we have the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances, and there's also a budgetary comparison on this. Split out, again, we have the general fund and the permanent fund separate. We have those amounts lined out, and you can see the contributions to the permanent fund is going to be revenue under the permanent fund, expense under the general fund, $250,000 for the year. So the general fund had an excess of revenues of $15,000. Permanent fund had an excess of revenues over expenditures of $574,000. After financial statements, we have the notes to the financial statements, and this is going to provide your accounting policies, definitions, and it gives a little more breakdown in some of the notes of those items that we just went over. Again, there's not very many changes other than just the numbers in these, so I don't think we need to go through a lot with them. On page 11, there's the fund balance, kind of right there in the middle of the page. We talked about this, went into it a little bit last year. This gives the definitions of what those non-expendable, committed, assigned, what all of those fund balances are. And then outside of that, note C is just going to give a little bit more information about your investment policies, some of the breakdown and the market values at the end of the year, split out in a little more detail. That's on page 12 and page 13. Like I said, my plan was to go through this pretty quick, and that's all that I have for you.
Anybody have any questions for me?
No, sir.
No, thank you, for most important part is you agree with our financial.
What's that?
The most important part is you agree with our financials. Recommendation.
So then as far as action items on my end is, once this is approved, I'll just probably have you sign the representation letter when I have you and Beth to sign.
Okay. All right, do we hear a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the 2024 audit as presented.
All right, we have a motion.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any discussion, Cheryl, discussion? Very good, thank you. Motion approved. Here, yeah.
And then Beth, I'll email over the finalized copy.
Thank you. We'll file it.
And anything else you need from me to us.
Yeah. We'll get you a check too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Dusty, yeah, thank you guys, all your hard work on the financials. You can back that.
I don't think you need me for anything else, do you?
No, perfect.
Do you want to sign this check?
Oh, yeah, you want to check?
Sworn in normally.
It's more of a collection call than a report.
That's not when you get to this part. I appreciate
All
the
you
pleasure
do,
getting
right?
more.
Thank you.
Thanks for.
All right, financials, yeah.
Okay, so for the month of June, we have a fund balance of 1,581,562. For the permanent fund, we have a 3.5 million balance on there. Our grants payable are showing 723,000. That'll of course go down with the check that'll go out today. For the profit and loss, we have total expenses of 4,215 for the month, and then interest earned is almost $5,000 for this month, and 10,000 for dividend income. Our grants payable, as mentioned before, there we can see that 143, that's 5 cents under budget. And that's all from my side.
Any questions on the finance?
No, sir.
You asked a question, you just kind of clean that up.
That's true.
Can have a motion to get the financials as presented.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Any discussion? None, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Our next item is review of the permanent fund.
Yeah, it's a great year so far. My balance is pretty close to what you showed up there with a couple $1,000 from it. We are at about 7.3% year to date though, which is actually ahead of the stock market, showing about 6%. So doing really well. That's primarily the results of a rebalance we did where we absolutely nailed it. I mean, we rebalanced on April 8th through 11th, which was exactly the low point of the market this year. And stocks have come up about 20% from there. So we did about a 5% shift in allocation to basically sell on and buy more stock while it's down. There you go. So good performance this year so far. Looking forward, I think valuations are back towards the high end though, with forward PE, the S&P is about 22 times. We have some slight signs of weakness now in the labor market and like consumer confidence and stuff like that. So there's a possibility of a rate cut. I would project one rate cut between now and the end of the year. And I don't think there's sell off or anything crazy, but I just think markets are pretty close to the high end of what we're going to have for the year, would be my guess. With that said, they just passed the big beautiful bill, which will extend deficits in the foreseeable future and kept tax rates low. Uses regulation, so I think that's really good for equities long term, and that's what I said we want to say. So we're at the high end of our equity allocation. We're actually over it a little bit. We're 65 is on cap for like 65.9%, but then we had a little leeway there to let that drift and potentially rebalance it back over a 3 or 6 month. So all's really good. Yeah, super happy.
What do you think? What quarter do you think will be the
Rate cut, I think before the quarter. Yeah. That's my guess. I mean, you kind of do the probabilities, right? I can talk about the fourth quarter, and there's a lot of people that don't think there'll be any rate cuts. Yeah. Some people project too, though. It's just starting to see a little bit of signs of weakness again. Like on the National Bureau of Economic Relations, I guess, is the NBER. They're the ones who coined the term recession, or like we'll call it a recession. And they have a heat map and they're really just leading indicators, and you're starting where they've been green for the last 6 months, you're starting to see a little yellow, orange in there. So but who knows? I think we've had some really good things this year. I mean, I've been really happy with that. It's going, even though everybody's really nervous. Like the geopolitical situation, I mean, to me, taking out a entire state was a really good thing. So keep it that way. So yeah.
You guys have any questions for Matt?
No,
You recommend we hold where we're at for the rest?
Well, I would say that pretty much since we started, I wish we were all equities and, I know we're following that investment policy statement, so given that we're bound by that, I would think. We're at the high end of it right now, so we're actually over 65% is the max equity allocation. We're 65.9, I think, right now, so. We'll let it drift a little. If it stays there, things keep going up, we'll rebalance it back for you guys, but I'm a fan of equities over the long term for sure. In fact, international is another, like, true piece of our outperformance this year, because the US stock market, it's the first year in a while, but, international is outperforming the US by quite a bit. The dollar is down almost 10% relative to the basket of foreign currencies. So that has a lot to do. But those things, they're cyclical, and I think those will level out. Generally, I like equities. If we can stomach the volatility, that's kind of the key to them, and we can, we're a permanent fund. So if there's a 10 or 15% drawdown, that's almost good news, great, we'll do another rebalance, just like we did in April, and that's how we capitalize by. I guess you could say it's like hitting singles to win volume over long periods of time instead of also. So.
Any questions, either one of you on that?
no, sir.
Motion to approve. Permanent investment board,
So moved.
Second.
motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, man. You keep that?
You guys have grown that by almost 1.3 million. That's pretty cool. I mean, since you started, that's $1.3 million over the high, we were just kind of sending it out the door and came in. So we got it.
Thank you.
I do have a question, not necessarily you, I guess, but for our board, do we ever hold back a year of grants just to beef up our investments?
Discuss that.
Legally, you can. You're not obliged to make those grants. You can only invest 50% of your revenue so you could invest 50%, hold back, and just draw bank interest on that. If you wanted to kind of grow your fund for coming year, or if, for example, you didn't like the applications you were getting, felt like they weren't significant, or you had another priority, such as a bigger project in a future year.
Yeah, or something like that.
We ever meet with any of the other mineral districts, like Garfield, and kind of go, hey, what are you guys doing?
It's been before my time.
That's been a
I talked to him
Okay.
before, and he doesn't, the Idaho Energy Posing. But
Twice that I can remember. Once they have an attorney, or had, I don't know if they still do or not, they had an attorney.
He's still there.
That is their executive director. And he came down here and pitched us on the idea, that was before Dusty. And so we were looking for an executive director. He pitched us on the idea of sharing him, that he'd be our executive director and theirs. And we deferred on that. And then we were all together when we were testifying over at CMU for the passage of the permanent fund.
Okay.
And
The investment authority legislation,
Yeah.
right? They were in favor of that.
and we had an interesting discussion with them there. Our understanding of the existing legislation and theirs were very different.
Yes.
And it was just interesting. Those are the only two times that I can.
Garfield County gets a lot more money. than
Oh,
us.
yeah.
A lot.
In the last,
Yeah.
we talked to him like, I think 2 years ago when the state for Highline was looking to apply for a grant from us. And
Oh,
so
right.
we called Garfield County and it was kind of the same thing. Garfield County's interpretation of what the law was different than what Chris had found.
Yeah.
And so we actually found out that we're not allowed to give the state any more funding because it would violate legislative funding stuff. And they were like, oh, well, we just do it
Yeah,
We're like, okay,
always a lot of
okay.
different interpretations.
So,
But
Yeah, my conclusion on that, I just sorry to interrupt, Craig. My conclusion on that was that we can't give grants to state agencies because that would subvert the will of the legislature, which appropriates and decides how much money each state agency gets.
Yeah.
So that's sort of an end run on their part around what the legislature does.
yeah.
Other people might see it differently.
Yeah. So that was the most recent time we talked to them was then.
they do have a very different scoring philosophy than we have. You know, our philosophy has always been to the money is meant for the people of Mesa County, and the only way it can get to where it needs to be is if we have, you know, grants and score those grants and award them to the highest, you know, scoring ones. They go through grant cycles all the time and don't fund anything because they don't like them. If they don't get if they don't see an application that's worthy of that money, but you know, with the I guess the philosophy that it is a resource that is finite. And so it's not going to be around forever. So let's make sure that we fund stuff that's important, because this money is not going to be around forever.
Do we know how many mineral lease districts are in the state?
Really about four, 3 or 4.
I think Rio Blanco has one.
Rio, Garfield, Weld, and us.
Yeah.
Well-
Weld is different because theirs is under theirs is operated totally different. Like their funding, I believe, only goes to roads and bridges, kind of a thing. If I remember correctly, how Weld County was
I
running
know
it.
it's different.
Yeah, theirs is different. So,
Infrastructure.
mhm.
So even just getting together with a retreat wouldn't necessarily, it's like apples to oranges, so everybody's doing something different.
Well, everybody gets different money.
Yeah,
I don't know about Rio Blanco. Have you?
No,
Never talked to them.
For a while, the commissioners were running their district,
Yeah.
and it was legally questionable the way they were doing it. But they're a small county, and they're sort of like, we don't have the resources to create multiple entities, but that may have changed. I don't know.
When Kimberly was up there, was she kind of running it? She was up there about that. Or she was kind of running it through
I don't remember.
the.
I don't.
Get asked her now, she done.
okay, well, thanks for entertaining me. I have no further questions.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Every time we talk with them, we find that we're
Yeah, a little different.
doing things differently.
Garfield County rents a storefront or an office in Glenwood. And they've got the whole thing, yeah, an office space and everything.
They're still getting.
Which is weird because
Full-time staff.
I think it's him and I think maybe an assistant because I think there's a lady's name that gets the
Right.
emails.
It's Drew Gorgate.
I was thinking, I was like Goki, I wanted to say
Yeah,
Goki, but
yeah.
that wasn't it. There you go.
Makes no sense, just
Think
find a dumb banker.
Well, I mean, to your credit, you've got sort of this virtual district where you've kept overhead low. You don't have,
You just
Rent.
fill up my garage with stuff. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's totally fine. It's not a big deal. I don't park in there anyway. It's fine.
And 12-year-old computers.
Yes. We are very frugal.
Thank you.
Next item, we have a modification to the City of Grand Junction training facilities. Grant, that was the one, if you all remember. Was the drainage and they had a
fire tower,
Connex.
Connex fire.
Yeah, that they were
Yeah.
finishing.
they needed to make a change. I'll let you explain what happened.
So we received an email from Crystal at the city who wrote the grant saying that they needed to make a modification to the grant application. So they were originally awarded $91,000 for the grant. The project was considered to be over $100,000 and it was a traditional grant and it was for the drainage fixing at the facility along with finishing the Connex. The The only thing I can say after having discussions is that there was a miscommunication as to how everything went down. And they were supposed to put the project out to bid for the drainage, and it got done in-house. Which means there was a considerable amount of savings for the Mineral East District. It's just they didn't quite follow scope of what they were supposed to do for the grant application. The project itself didn't change, just who did the work did. So it was a very complicated set of emails and discussions to get to that point. We looked at both the project description and the discussion in the budget from the first one, and then with the one that they sent over after we'd walked through what we were looking for. Basically, Chief Hendricks had said he didn't realize they were supposed to do a bid, and they just went ahead and did it themselves. So that's where we are. So we needed to make a modification to the contract. And that's where Chris comes in.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, so you've got a modification to the agreement that just basically reduces the amount of the grant based on changed circumstances. Everything else in the contract remains the same, except for the dollars. It frees up some money that could be granted for other purposes. Although I suppose it does, it calls into question whether they were accurate in what they're doing when they submitted the grant application. And it seems like it was an honest mistake. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have
No,
any
we don't
information
have any information.
to the contrary.
Yeah, so far.
Mostly just miscommunication from the different departments. And a lot of the back and forth was trying to get them to understand the documentation we needed to back up this stuff.
And Crystal, the person who originally sent the email, has been out of office and she will be for a month. So another lady had to step in, their supervisor, which also kind of complicated the communication process. So she was stepping into.
And Dusty, your understanding was the work was done after the grant was awarded.
Yes.
Um,
I was confused by the dates that she did put in there. I don't have any way to prove that it wasn't done after, but they did talk about the planning that had taken place in 2023. And they applied for the grant in 2024 and got awarded the grant.
One of the things that the red flag that was tipped with me was historically this board has been very reluctant to give a grant to an agency for stuff they've already done. Sort of backfilling their budget in a way. We don't have any evidence of that, at least not at this point, but that was one of the concerns that I expressed when we were looking at this.
From what I can see, from their documentation, it does not show nothing shows it's started on it.
The work is done, so the good news is that the project is finished.
Yeah, they'll close it out
They'll
early.
close it out.
Any pictures or anything of it yet?
No, because they just wanted to make sure that we'd be willing to move forward with reimbursement. So.
I think it's just hopefully a lesson for us and them. So make sure that they fully understand. And I think Dusty's workshop will probably help with that.
Yeah, I think that's an issue for all grantees to understand. That they are to be submitting applications for future projects, not stuff they've already done.
When they presented on it, there was no discussion that hinted that they had started work previously from and I saw no problems with it. So.
And I don't know what the difference, I think we talked about, maybe, I'm not sure what the threshold is for what the process is for what makes a project go out to bid versus what gets done in-house. So
Every jurisdiction's a little
Yeah.
different. It generally, they're at the city, their policy is not to self-perform work because typically that pulls them away from their other duties. And they put those capital projects out to bid, but this may have been, it's their training facility. It may have been that they have that in-house knowledge that they could do it cheaply, which it's good to save money too, so.
I don't know what time they were gonna. Number cap or something. On items that you set up, but I think that all fell apart.
Generally, the construction industry very much hates it when local governments self-perform work. Local governments are gonna do whatever they need to do to save money, so you know that. The county, I think, self-performs not big projects, but smallish ones.
Well, I think
We have road and bridge, we have an amazing amount. of
Yeah.
mileage.
You're right. We had to put everything out to bid,
Yeah.
nothing would ever get done,
Yeah, I mean, we wish, our engineering department could do some of that heavy lifting, because that ends up being very expensive, but we can't do it all, but yeah, I'm sure there are some internal policies that maybe they're cleaning up and we can't do. It's probably just an oversight.
pretty small potatoes compared to the things that they've had to build themselves, so.
Yeah.
Right, do we have any other questions?
I can,
Well, I think,
Comment.
there's a bigger issue here. With these. We owe it to these applicants and the people in Mesa County to be fair and honest in our application and supporting process. And we also owe them that we will maintain the integrity of the federal mineral listing district. So if we make a habit or set a precedent for letting successful grantees change the project, it's a free-for-all. You can apply for A and spend it on C. And pretty soon that integrity I'm talking about is gone. So I will just say, for the record, till yesterday, I was a hard no on this. And I talked to Dusty and made sure that they didn't change the project. They just changed the way that it was, that the project was performed. And I think if they would have done it in such a way that they needed additional money, we would have had another issue on our hands. But the fact that the same work that was contemplated in our scoring process, and they completed it and under budget, that doesn't give me heartburn, but this came real close to heartburn for me.
I know I personally got a little excited when it first was brought up to me. And as Craig said, they're not coming to us for more money. They have completed the project. They're not coming to us saying that they need to complete the project. They completed it. They saved us money. We will have money to give to others. And appreciate that. So unlike Craig, we can be fine line. I feel they fall on the right side of that one. So. There we go.
is there a place in the application where it says, will this be self-performed, or is this going out to bid?
No, they put that all in.
Right.
They put that all
In their-
in their
In
application.
their
They
narrative.
do that, yeah, they put that in their budget. And in the narrative as well, so,
And I think their schedule also contemplate,
Yeah.
we make them do a schedule.
yeah, timeline,
One of the line items is usually put it out for
bid
bid.
process, yeah, after a bid process, it'll go into it, but.
I suppose if they put in that application, that they may self-perform some of those, but pieces of that.
Sure.
So, do you have any opinions coming from your side of the table?
We are very, we're sticklers on contracts, we're sticklers on our purchasing agreements and how we do business, so from a county level, it's very cut and dry. But getting that perspective does see if this is just a miscommunication. I also can see between different departments how that might have happened, and it doesn't appear that it's intentional, but I also understand the point of setting precedents and making this a habit. So just kind of one of those things, but I mean, I'm thankful that it didn't cost more money. They're not asking for money. There was a savings. That does go a long way. That means something, but I get the integrity where we have to make sure we're doing our due diligence, and with public dollars, that means a lot.
I think now that all the seats on the bus are over at the city. Not likely anything like this would happen again. Appeared to be more just a miscommunication. People didn't understand the priorities and the ramifications. Just trying to. With that discussion. Do I hear, is there any more discussion on this? Do I hear a motion that we approve the new contract for the city, or modified contract for the city of Grand Junction?
I move for the approval of the modifications to 2024 FTO 6 City of Grand Junction Training Facility Management.
I second.
All right. Any other discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is approved. I will do one thing that was signed in a minute. Thank you, guys. Thanks for looking at that and your thoughts on that. That'll help us in the future, I believe. Sometimes it takes something like that to make us put our heads up and look out and see what might happen. Okay. Bylaws for the permanent fund. Chris, you wanna?
Yeah, so last meeting, I gave you a draft and, you guys were nice enough to tell me that it wasn't exactly what you wanted. And so I brought this back to you. In your packet is a red line version, but also on your desks are a clean version. I think the packets were getting huge, but so in summary, the major change here is to make clear that that you're only going to be approving an expenditure from the permanent fund in cases where it's clearly an emergency situation, upon unanimous approval of the board. And there are some limitations in that you're only going to expend 1 year's revenue, and I think I've spelled that out on that appropriations from the permanent fund shall not exceed the equivalent of the appreciation or earnings obtained in the preceding fiscal year. So again, the policy behind that is to prevent efforts to just gut the permanent fund in one full action or one single action. And that was in response to, I think, specifically Craig's concern that I think the original draft said that you would not invade the corpus in effect. And this is just a little more stringent. And then I added some changes, tried to improve the readability and make sure it was organized a little more clearly, and so that it flowed a little better. It just wordsmithing, I would say. And hopefully it reads better and will fulfill our needs going forward. But yeah, we've got clear language about public notice, public hearings, the process, standard for reviewing those applications, and what you can do. So again, to try to tell future boards that you don't undertake these decisions lightly.
Um. Questions on this? Do you guys both deal with this? Follows our intent?
Yeah.
I believe it does.
I do too. I think changes were good. We don't have any, discussion on it. Look for a moment, move into the bylaw.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any other discussions? Yeah, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed?
Well done, Chris.
Thank you,
Great.
Chris.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you for getting that done. Reviewing that for us. Okay.
You've established a lockbox for the permanent fund.
Yes.
To quote Al Gore, you remember Al Gore, he always used to talk about the social security lockbox.
Yep. All right, review. So now we will go into, for those of you, we're gonna go into a little discussion about grant scoring. So if anyone would like to leave, you are welcome to do.
Probably just need some checks signed.
What's that?
These two probably just need their checks signed.
Wait for
Yeah.
their-
Yeah.
Nobody leaves until they pay.
I should know
I'll
that.
secure one.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I just found the lesson on that from my wife.
Now I'm curious.
Yeah. What next?
My wife,
The follow-up question.
my wife is also my insurance agent, and I was being obstinate. And I was told, "You really gonna do this to me?"
Yeah, you're increasing the risk profile and you might get a policy revoked for being reckless.
Okay,
I never get in the way of a brave man.
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. A Buffalo charge might be mild compared to what I faced yesterday, so.
Oh, that's right. You got your life insurance all paid out before you leave on your safari?
Yes, I do.
You don't.
You made sure
Take the
that-
well, just in case.
Wasn't it the guy from the NRA that almost got trampled by an elephant?
It
Yeah.
was somebody,
It was Wayne LaPierre. He was
was it Wayne Long?
charging elephant, and I think he missed, and then his wife stepped in and shot it or something.
That's funny.
Okay.
She saved his life.
Yeah, she did.
Well, Dustin.
Yes.
Everybody,
So we held that grant workshop and we had a really good turnout of people. In fact, I've had several emails that people saying thank you for the information. They felt really good about the information we gave out, kind of giving them the history of the Mineral Lease District. Said the application made more sense to them and how they were gonna be filling it out, just because they know where the money's coming from and what we're looking for things to be applied. Craig was able to stay the whole time and gave some helpful information too, when it came down to like scoring and what we were looking for in the applications and how they answer things. I think the two things that we did change for the application moving forward for this time is that the life expectancy exceeding 7 years is a go or no go situation with the application, along with having to submit a board resolution that says your governing body supports federal mineral development in Colorado. So we might see some interesting grant applications. Hopefully everybody follows through and reads the directions this time, because I know they were really excited about all the information that we did give them. This does kind of bring about scoring where it's probably going to be harder for you guys to score, because they will have a lot more information that they're going to be looking for. We gave them very specific examples of what we were looking for and how to actually get to a score of 10, or, the max amount of information. We never really had one that's been perfect across the board, but we've had several examples that were really good in answering. So, I think the quality of applications are gonna be fantastic, hopefully. I say that all hopes. But. Yeah, coming over the scoring. The questions that you're gonna be looking at, there's just a reminder that if anybody scores a 0 or a 10 also, we need to have an explanation as to why someone would have a perfect score. Or if you score them 0, we need to have an understanding as to why you're scoring 0, just for records. I'm not exactly sure why that was put in there, but it is. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are matters of your internal governance, and you could. It's very unlikely that a scoring decision would ever be challenged by somebody legally saying, you know, they didn't give us a fair shake, or this was corrupt or whatever. That seems very, very unlikely. And of course, it's never happened in all these years. But I think historically, the board has tried to be as careful as it can be about weighing things on their merits, and being,
We've done some 0s in the past, but it's when they obviously have not met.
Pass fail.
There is,
Yeah.
there is
Or
one,
they missed an
one that's like a
eligibility thing.
pass fail, I think,
Yeah.
when in the scoring thing too.
You met the, when they didn't meet. some of the
Funding,
requirements
yeah.
and grant or finances or something like that, and then people didn't meet it, so.
Right.
And most of them, they knew there, they just sent the grant in anyway. Hoping that they would miss that, yeah.
It's pretty against the wall.
yeah, they're,
Yes.
they have grant writers, and they're,
Yes.
well, you're setting out these things to as many agencies as they can, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one that we talked about previously, so on the scoring sheet, it's number 5. No, maybe not. If your organization is not successful in securing money, that's not it.
Yeah.
How's this energy? Future of the project. Operating costs. Maybe this one. Because one of them was pass fail, like, do you have all the funding and
Yeah.
for this?
Funding in place.
Yeah, it's funding in place, and
It was
if
not.
that one's the one that's supposed to be, yes, we have all the funding, or we don't have any of the funding.
Goes back to that shovel ready.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excluding funds sought in the grant application, have all funds for the completion of the project been secured from all the sources? If the answer is no, please provide all the details. So this was the one that we had talked about, and I can change this on your guys' scoring sheet too, where that one's usually either a pass or fail. Just so that when you guys are going through scoring, you guys can remember that one's either yes or no. Because we had talked about that years ago. But they either have all the money and they're shovel ready, or they don't. But there's really no in between for that one, so. And I can- Yeah, so I can change that for you guys' scoring sheet so that you guys have that
Oh,
reminder.
there isn't in between.
There is,
Or, see, either they have the money or they don't,
Right.
or they're gonna do it internally.
that's
Or-
fine,
Well,
that's halfway.
And some of them have said, look, if we don't get all the money, we'll do 70% of the project as opposed to 100% of the project. So they scale it back.
Well, that question, that was a big, thing with me when I was scoring the, athletic field lights
Mhm.
up in Colburn.
Mhm.
Is, they were adamant that
Yeah.
we might cut back where we have to, but we are going to do this.
We're gonna do.
This community is going to do this, and you're like, you know what? You feel that seriously
That
about
puts
it.
it up,
Yeah,
yeah, that puts it up on my, that did,
yeah.
that did.
It means something. Really does.
And we covered that in a grant workshop too. Craig did voice that too. When
Yeah.
people put in there, like, how do you plan to like move forward if you don't get funding for this? They're like, well, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, like in Craig said,
Flyer.
yeah, exactly. Well, maybe in a few years then, it's not really that important. And so he said that really makes a difference when he's scoring, if they're, gonna push through or not. Like, we're gonna do this come hell or high
We are,
water, no matter what, yeah.
We'll pull money out of this project.
Right.
We have somewhere that's got,
Mhm.
if we don't get the grant, we'll pull money from this for the project.
Yeah, like it has to get done.
And that shows that they got the commitment. So,
And
yeah,
I hope we cleared up too, like the last question on the grant application, when they go through and. Hold on, what is this? It says, if you're the additional information, would your project proceed with partial funding of this application? I tried to stress, I'm like, they've already scored. I said, this only comes up when there's money that's left over or there's split. Would you take a partial funding if it comes down to it after all the money's been divvied out? And I said, I think a lot of times people answer that in hopes that it's maybe going to skew how things get scored. I'm like, it doesn't. Your scoring's based on those questions. This is literally, if you got half the money, would you still be able to use it? Yeah.
and you make.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping when they get to that point too, they understand, be honest, because we've had to go through and, have the discussions with people in the room who've changed their answers only because they were in here. Otherwise they would have missed out on funding. So we've hopefully kind of cleared up some of the maybe vagueness that might be in the application to help give you guys better answers to be able to make better scoring positions with. So.
Well, as I said in my email, Dusty did a really nice job. That workshop.
Great.
And the attendance was good.
It was good, yeah.
I
We had
was
a lot of
surprised with the
questions.
attendance. I didn't think you were gonna get the attendance you did.
Yeah, I was surprised
And,
too.
Or it didn't sound like you were going to. I came by, you had a
Yeah, it was
beautiful,
full food group, yeah, so,
or not a full room, but.
Yeah.
Just
about 3 rows.
15 people there.
Yeah.
So, it was good.
Gateway sent 3 people, so.
Yeah.
They really
That's
need the
okay.
money.
Yeah, so run into him, I
Yeah,
hadn't talked to
everybody's
Galen in a
gone.
while, and I ran into him at our kid's birthday party, and so we got talking, and he was like, yeah, I dropped the boat on that, so we dropped the ball, we don't have any boats here, but. So was all excited about the grant workshop and made sure people came, he sent 2 of his board members and then his staff members, so. And the board members had a lot of questions, but they were
There just
really,
isn't much private property in that district, so they don't pull in very much tax money.
You're one benefactor.
Yeah, and you got this one
Easily.
giant ranch, or the Hendricks property or the Gateway Canyon.
It's back up for sale.
I saw
yeah,
that.
he said that, so.
So,
Yeah.
What else can we talk about?
Chris, I've got a question. This situation with the city of Grand Junction, can we, and I understand that the verbiage can lead you wherever, but can we codify how serious we are in the application?
Oh, yeah.
And the contract with, if you decide to change the scope of this project or the way that it's funded, we reserve the right to cancel it.
and it's in the contract, the existing contracts, I don't have them. I should have brought one here, but
You don't have it memorized?
yeah, I don't have them. But yeah, the language says in the contract, says this grant is for this project within this time period, with this detail. We've got language that says if they breach, if they, in an extreme situation, you give the money for project A and they use it for somewhere else, that's a breach. We can demand refund of the money, return the money, and we can also take steps like disqualifying them from future grant applications. And so
Number 4.
yeah.
Subject to the terms and conditions set forth in this agreement, the grantor awards the grantee the amount. The grant shall be used by the grantee solely to complete the project in substantial conformity with the final plans, specifications, designs, and uses approved by the grantor and in conformity with the grant application.
And the next one, number 5, any material modification to the project without grantor's prior written consent may be deemed a breach, entitling grantor to all remedies available under the agreement. And so there's a notice provision that if it can't be completed as reflected in the application, they'll advise us. And if you go down, Dusty, to remedies,
Disbursement funds, compliance, non-discrimination, signage.
Go down.
The liability, audits, accounting, breach.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you know. You can grant or terminate this agreement if the board determines. You know, there's a change of circumstances, material modifications to the scope and nature of the project have occurred. Have not received prior written approval, one or more statements made. Are untrue or inaccurate. So if there's other, the documentation is inadequate, that's the other thing, sometimes you get inadequate record keeping, so that's been very rare for us. I don't know that we've had, yeah. I know there's been a couple times where like fire district had an invoice that didn't quite match up or something.
Oh, no, that was their title. That was the town of Palisade had a title of the vehicle that they bought, that the title date was a year prior.
Yeah, if you go down to remedies there under 20, you know, we can withdraw the grant, terminate the agreement, deny eligibility, seek specific performance, obtain reimbursement. I mean, we've got some pretty powerful remedies. And the biggest one that I would see is that if somebody lies to you or doesn't do what they said they were going to do, you're never going to give them another grant. I mean, why would you want to work with that kind of an entity? So that is probably one of the biggest things that people need to understand is the whole thing depends on trust.
Mm-hmm.
Could we legally disqualify?
Yes,
I mean,
it's in our contract, so we can, you know,
It
we
says right
can,
there, you can be ineligible for future participation in grants, loans, or projects.
yeah, legally we call that debarment, and it's you know, you got to have a good reason for it. I mean, you don't do it lightly, and you want to document it. If, for example, if you had a situation where, and I'm trying to remember, there might have been a situation where the county has debarred a contractor who, you know, was incompetent or did a bad job, you know, historically, it's very rare.
Had an issue with, I'm on the opioid board council, and one of the recipients of the opioid dollars did not fulfill their contract duties, and we asked for the money back. And and then, you know, they gave us a sliver of it back, but then so we moved forward. We said, okay, fine. You don't have to give it back to us, but you're gonna be suspended from submitting, because what we needed was verifiable data. Where is this money going? What population is it helping? And we needed that data back so we could say this is a good return on investment. And they didn't hold up their end of the contract, so it was a little difficult. Good intentions, but it's just not part of the contract.
And it's the same issue for the district. So for example, I mean, we have the statutory mandates that the money can only be spent for specific purposes, you know, providing public services, public infrastructure in Mesa County. And if it got diverted to some other purpose, we could, in an extreme circumstance, sue to get it back, terminate the agreement, debar the recipient from future grants. And so there's a lot of remedies. We've never had to do it. I don't even think we've ever come close. We've had a couple of situations where we have modified agreements because the work changed or
Really, it's always been completion dates.
usually, yeah. It seems like I remember like
CMU with the electric line worker building was the one that
And that was,
They got
instead
close.
of a remodel, they relocated it.
they relocated it, and the state was supposed to give them funding. So for 2 years in a row, they went to the state to get funding, and the state cut it
That's right.
like last minute. And so they were on their last year. Then they said, we'll pay for it ourselves. Otherwise, we were gonna pull the contract
Yeah.
back. That's where it got to with that
But
one.
most of the time, it's discretionary with the board. The applicant comes in and says, you know, kind of hat in hand, we had a problem here and we need help we got to change this, or we've never had a situation where somebody just flat out breached their agreement with us. At least not that I know of. Not since I've been there. But you have all of those remedies. So if we had an extreme circumstance, we might commence a legal action against a grantee if they really really, deserved it.
There's
Well,
something fraudulent in there.
I like, open meetings and open information instead of, okay, we're not gonna score this. The grant applications from this entity very well because we don't like the way they acted on that last one. I don't like that
Yeah,
because all the players could be gone. This I would rather have a formal. Don't apply. You're.
most of the time when
we're
it,
barring.
yeah, and you know, I've seen this at the federal government level, when they debar a contractor. They send them a letter and says, you're not eligible for work for 5 years, whatever. It is a formal action. There's some process that goes with it. Of course, we've never had to do that, but if we really had a situation where we thought somebody was abusing the system, we theoretically, we could do that.
Yeah, you've got it codified in the agreement, so.
Yeah. And mostly we've got good people that we work with.
We do.
Um,
I guess it would like. It's just kind of culminating right now because we had a weird application process in 24 with some. Hypothetical situations landing in an application versus being true. And then this kind of happening on top of it where things were done without permission to be modified.
I
So,
think we've had some other modifications, you know, but they've been really minor, like,
yeah,
I can't even remember what they were.
What's it?
In the same. Grant cycle.
Yeah.
It could have been worse.
yes.
The ramifications of this last grant cycle could have been worse.
Mhm.
Anyway, anything else?
No, I don't think so.
We'll be scoring soon. I guess careful what you ask for, we may have some good applications and we'll maybe a little more work this next time around. It was good and bad.
To answer Bobby's question though, I, there's some times that I don't feel very good about what we did. There's some times that I wish we just wouldn't have given all the money away. If something doesn't pass that, hit that bar,
Kept it.
where it to just give it away because we have it may not, might not be the most prudent
Not the best.
use of public money. To your point about, do we have to, grant the money out every year? And when we started, we did.
Oh, yeah.
The original legislation required it.
Well, and then we're also dealing with lots more money back then, and we were doing bigger projects that really needed it. But yeah, no, you don't have to make a grant in any cycle. The problem is that with the permanent fund or the investment legislation, we can only invest 50% of the money in it. And so the question is, what do you do with the other 50% if you don't have qualifying projects? You can put it in our state investment pool or at Alpine Bank and getting a decent return, but it is just sitting there, and sometimes you're not getting that kind of a good return on your money. But sometimes, you could make a policy that says we're going to bank money because there's going to be a really good big project that's coming down the pike. And
I see it in lots of different ways. I know with county capital projects, today is gonna be the cheapest it's ever gonna be.
Right.
So get it done. It's only gonna get
that's a good point.
and so I can see it in that realm. But I also can see it where you don't have as much money as we used to, so you're doing littler projects where you could do bigger projects and that means a lot to some entities that would never be able to tackle some of these things, or for schools and infrastructure like that. So, I can see it both ways. And putting it out in the community has a big benefit, and then building that reserve up is really good. I think 50 is probably a really good balance and building up that. I know the market is going to, be a little different, just, he was really good at touching on that and where we should be putting our money right now, and I think that had some, good elements in there as well, so it just things to consider, things I think about.
Well, and we do, like you said, we do good balance, and if we're holding that money, it is not benefiting the community. We're not, it's not out there being used,
But even
generating economy.
But under whatever interest rate Alpine is paying us on the money, that's better than funding things that don't matter.
Yeah, I was thinking along. the
Yeah,
lines
we're
of-
getting about $5,000 a month in interest right now, which, we went like 10 years without getting any interest on
I'm
anything.
thinking more along the lines of the economic multiplier.
Oh, yeah.
It's sitting in our account. It's not out there related to contractors and workers. People out in the community, so, that's, yeah.
Yeah, I did think about that. I was up in Quebec for a meeting and I saw they had the concrete crew that was out there doing sidewalks downtown, and I can't remember how many people they had working there.
Yeah.
And you could really see, okay, these guys had jobs, they were working. That was directly with mineral lease money that was funding these improvements that benefited this little town. And it was just tangible to me to see these guys out working.
Yeah.
Doing the flat work.
I think it's kind of special too, because they sit in both Garfield and Mesa district, right? Because I think with their direct fire department, we funded part of it, but I think Garfield County's mineral lease district funded a larger portion than we did.
The fire district
Yeah,
crosses county lines.
yeah,
Right.
so they're.
The town is
Yeah,
not,
you're
the
right.
town is
Yeah.
not in Garfield County,
Yeah.
it's all in Mesa County, but, yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah,
Well,
so.
see a good example, go look at the school up in.
That's around.
Oh, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful school, it's gonna be
Yeah.
very nice for that community.
How long are they gonna keep digging around with the field, the sports field out there? They've dug it up and
I don't know.
put it all back in place, and dug it up and put it all back. I'm sure there's a lot of infrastructure going on underneath it. Yes, sir. They've been moving dirt around on that, but it looks good. It's coming
Well,
from-
and we might be able to capitalize and get more of the federal mineral lease money with the federal policies that are coming out. And so I think that might
Yeah.
change things. I mean, Colorado is a different animal for sure. We still have the state that we have, but I think on the federal side, with public lands and some of their policies, I think that might help get this money out to the community in a way that the state of Colorado has been really difficult to work with, and we're seeing it so many ways. I mean, Plateau Valley, the school is calling the county because they know their tax base is going down because, their energy might be pulling out, and they built their bond on those numbers. And so the sustainability is just not there. And it's solely on the feet of Colorado, this current administration. So, I mean, it's good news, at least federal land is taking a different approach. And I think that that's gonna be seen in schools funding. And that's excellent. So we might see a change in some of the money that we have.
The good news is, Laramie and Plateau Valley, they're our biggest driller in Mesa County. They are permitting several new wells now on federal lands. The bad news is, it takes 1,000 days for the state of Colorado process permit. 1,000 days.
It
And
takes
most
3
Most
years.
leases are 5
Yeah,
years.
we'll have a new governor before then.
So anyway, the good news is they are drilling, they are actively drilling right now. And in Mesa County, one rig going right now, but they're actively drilling and
That
getting
is
some
good.
good wells. And more income for us, more income for the Plateau Valley School District and all of our.
Were you okay with the grant contract wordage that we have?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just want to make sure if we circle back on
think
that.
it gives us all the
Okay,
remedies that we need.
Okay.
I like it.
You know, and every year, just so the board knows, every year before we do grants, I kind of review our contract from last year and see if there's anything I need to tweak. Just every year you think of something new, and sometimes there's stuff that you can take out. But if there's something that you're worried about or that you want me to address, just
And we've updated the application several times, so that's okay.
how much you're gonna have for grants, do we know?
So with the money rolling back in with the modified grant, we have at least an extra, I think, 50,000 coming back in. So 550,000 for sure that we could grant out. So. Cause we originally said 500, I believe that's what we said.
Do we have any new business?
No, sir.
Hearing none, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor? Well, thank you, guys. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn at 3:21.
Which fire district are you?